Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Um, I have done my best on this one, so I hope I hit all the points. I'd like to start with the reading for today from Jesus Calling by Sarah Young, and it's never take for granted my intimate nearness. Marvel at the wonder of my continual presence with you. Even the most ardent human lover cannot be with you always, nor can another person know the intimacies of your heart, mind, and spirit. I know everything about you, even the number of hairs on your head. You don't need to work at revealing yourself to me. Many people spend a lifetime or a small fortune searching for someone who understands them. Yet I am freely available to all who call upon my name, who open their hearts to receive me as Savior. This simple act of faith is the beginning of a lifelong love story. I, the lover of your soul, understand you perfectly and love you eternally.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yes.
Okay, so we're starting with 2 Samuel 13. My reference sources for today are 2 Samuel by Ralph Davis, 2 Samuel 13 commentary that I found online by Precept Austin, and Marlene's wonderful handouts. So, after David's sins were committed, confessed, and cleansed, there were consequences as prophesied by Nathan that he would not be the one to build the temple. Sin's consequences would continue for the remainder of his life on earth. This chapter begins with Amnon, who is David's son with Ahinoam, and Tamar, who is David's daughter with Maacah, and sister to Absalom. They were half siblings. Amnon, these you're going to understand at the end of the chapter that the meanings of these names don't really match. Amnon means fruitful and stable. Tamar means palm tree, fruitfulness. And Absalom comes from Abishalom, which is Ab, the father, and a shalom, peace or father of peace. Amnon was in love with Tamar and was to the point of illness over it. And Amnon had a friend named Jonadab, who was the son of Shemiah, David's brother. One definition of Joanadab said that he was wise in evil counsel. And there is no info on him before or after the 2 Samuel 13. He had the skill to leak evil everywhere, while Amnon just wanted to satisfy his hormones. Deborah, can you read verses 1 through 9, please?
Of course.
Thank you.
In the course of time, Amnon, son of David, fell in love with Tamar, the beautiful sister of Absalom, son of David. Amnon became frustrated to the point of illness on account of his sister Tamar, for she was a virgin and it seemed impossible for him to do anything to her. Now, Amnon had a friend named Jonadab, son of Shemaiah. David's brother, Jonadab, was a very shrewd man. He asked Amnon, "Why do you, the king's son, look so haggard morning after morning? Won't you tell me?" Amnon said to him, "I'm in love with Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister." "Go to bed and pretend to be ill," Jonadab said. "When your father comes to see you, say to him, 'I would like my sister Tamar to come and give me something to eat. Let her prepare the food in my sight, so I may watch her and then eat it from her hand.'" So Amnon lay down and pretended to be ill. When the king came to see him, Amnon said to him, "I would like my sister Tamar to come and make special bread in my sight, so I may eat from her hand." David sent word to Tamar at the palace. Go to the house of your brother Amnon and prepare some food for him. So Tamar went to the house of her brother Amnon, who was lying down. She took some dough, kneaded it, made the bread in his sight, and baked it. Then she took the pan and served him the bread, but he refused to eat. Send everyone out of here, Amnon said, so everyone left him.
Thank you, Deborah. Was Amnon really too sick to eat and too weak to feed himself? We shall find out. Janet, could you read verses 10 through 12, please?
Certainly. Amnon said to Tamar, "Bring the food here into my bedroom so I may eat from your hand." And Tamar took the bread she had prepared and brought it to her brother Amnon in his bedroom. But when she took it to him to eat, he grabbed her and said, "Come to bed with me, my sister." "No, my brother," she said to him, "don't force me. Such a thing should not be done in Israel. Don't do this wicked thing."
Why wouldn't he listen to Tamar? And why was he so controlling? Was his lust that strong that he would not listen to her pleas? Jane, could you read 13 through 14, please?
Of course. What about me? Where could I get rid of my disgrace? And what about you? You would be like one of the wicked fools.
Trapped, ignored, raped, and ruined. She pleads with him to no avail. Okay. Okay.
Kim, excuse me, I have
Yeah.
a question. Jane, what Bible are you reading? Where did you read from?
NIV.
NIV. Okay. Because most of the older Bibles do not use the word rape.
Oh, okay.
They use the word he laid with her.
Her, yeah.
Same thing.
Okay.
Not that there's anything wrong. It was just more
Yeah.
graphic than some of the older versions of the Bibles.
True.
Gotcha.
It is. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Anybody, please feel free to add in if I've missed something.
Well, I'm thinking, Kim, I'm thinking about the lust that David had for Bathsheba when he had so many wives and concubines. And here's Amnon with his own half-sister, letting his lust rule his emotions and his behavior.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up a little later.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. No, that's fine. The longer it takes, the better we are.
Kim,
And repeat is good.
Kim, I have an observation.
Yes.
Yeah, Amnon made his own father, King David, complicit in his sin.
Yes. And I was going to get to that later too.
Yeah.
That's coming up.
Stay tuned.
Okay. And Kim's not on, is she? Okay. I'll read 15 and 16. Then Amnon hated her with intense hatred. In fact, he hated her more than he had loved her. Amnon said to her, "Get up and get out." "No," she said to him, "sending me away would be a greater wrong than what you have already done to me." But he refused to listen to her. And again, she's pleading for him to not do any more wrong than he's already done. But, yeah. Jeannie, could you please read verses 17 and 8? Yes, Marlene.
I just want to say what a human reaction that is
Yes.
by Amnon. It's always, when you do something wrong, it's always easier to blame the other person and
Yeah.
not take the blame for your actions.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's what he was doing there. He was trying to shift it all on her.
Yeah.
That was typical in the Bible, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Started with Adam and Eve.
you're right.
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 Always a woman's fault.
Yes.
Mhm.
What, and plus, hearing that, he was really lusting over her, and then he turned to hating, immense hate. So that was another admittance of what he had done wrong.
Yeah. Well, it was easier for him to think she shouldn't have given in to me. She shouldn't have let me do it.
But he was so much stronger than her, she couldn't fight him off.
Well,
Here's the
we
problem
realize
we have
that,
today.
he was twisting it in his own mind.
This is true. Yes.
He probably also could use the excuse that, well, she seduced me.
Could be.
And that would really lay some blame on her.
Yeah.
Vicky, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was going to say, well, the notes at the bottom of my Bible says that a man who rapes a virgin is required to marry and is forbidden to send her away. And they refer to a passage in Deuteronomy, I guess, that states that. So he is breaking the law.
And I think that it's lust. It's not love for his
No, it's lust.
It's pure lust. And he just treats her as an object and not as a person.
It's
you know. Just, oh, I've got a dirty Kleenex. I'm just going to throw it out.
Not much has changed.
No.
I have a question real quick, because in verse 13 it says, when she says, "Speak to the king, for he will not withhold me from you." Do we really think would David have allowed them to be married since they were half siblings?
He might have. I mean, that's just supposition on our part right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
I just thought that was interesting that she made that comment.
There been breeding with loyalty throughout centuries and centuries.
Yeah, interbreeding.
Yeah.
Can I interrupt, please? Somebody has a lot of background noise. Would you please go to mute if that's you, please? Thank you.
Yes, Barbara.
Following Vicky's comment about if a woman was raped, the man was supposed to marry her. Well, if Amnon decided he didn't want to marry her, it becomes a question of he said, she said. She said she was raped, and he said, no, I didn't rape her. She seduced me. I mean, that's not what it says, but I'm just saying there's and who are they going to believe? The man, right?
Yep.
I doubt they could have, if he didn't want to marry her after all this, he could say, no, she seduced me. I don't want any part. She's unclean. And then that poor woman, her life is ruined.
Yeah. Definitely.
But let's not forget, he has confessed to a couple of people his intentions with his half sister.
Yeah.
So it's not like he did it completely in secret. He's kind of exposed himself.
Yes, he did.
In more ways than one.
Excuse me.
No. Oh, well. Boy, did he ever.
Revealed himself. I don't know.
We understand your message, Deborah.
Sorry, Kim.
That's all right.
Get his trench coat back, right?
This Bible study is rated X.
Today.
All right, let's bring it back. The point, but the thing is,
Yes.
he did not want to take any of the blame.
Right. That's right.
Well,
Jeannie, go ahead. Who was that?
This Marilyn.
Yes.
He said he was in love with her, but it was really just lust, because love, if you go back to 1 Corinthians 13 and see what love is, he was just in lust, and that's why he rejected her, because he was satisfied with what he got, but he didn't really love her. It was just lust.
Right.
Maybe he wasn't satisfied with what he got.
Right.
He wanted to get her out of there.
Right.
Jeannie, could you read 17 through 18, please?
Yes. He called his personal servant and said, "Get this woman out of my sight and bolt the door after her." So his servant put her out and bolted the door after her. She was wearing an ornate robe, for this was the kind of garment the virgin daughters of the king wore.
Thank you, Jeannie. He had called her my sister when he wanted some afternoon delight. This was more than rape. It was incest and explicitly forbidden in the covenant law. If we go to Leviticus 18:9, it says, "Do not have sexual relations with your sister, either your father's daughter or your mother's daughter, whether she was born in the same home or elsewhere." And then again, verse 11, "Do not have sexual relations with the daughter of your father's wife. Born to your father, she is your sister." And then in Deuteronomy 27:22, it says, "Cursed is the man who sleeps with his sister, the daughter of his father or the daughter of his mother." And Tamar called it Nebalah, godlessness. A Nabal will do Nebalah, a wicked pervert or a godless wretch.
And Nabal was Kim, wasn't Nabal the one that, and when I was reading, he was the one that was married to Abigail, and he was for what the Bible said, he was not a good guy. He was mean and nasty and a fool.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
The translation into English. Oh, sorry. Tamar not only called the deed by its right name, but pled with Amnon to consider the consequences. The translation into English had Amnon say, "Get this woman out of here." But strictly the word woman is not in the Hebrew text. He actually says, "Get this out," as if she were a piece of impersonal trash to be tossed out to the curb. Marcia, could you read 19 through 20, please?
I will. And Tamar put ashes on her head and tore her long sleeved garment which was on her. And she put her hand on her head and went away, crying aloud as she went. Then Absalom, her brother, said to her, "Has Amnon, your brother, been with you? But now keep silent, my sister. He is your brother. Do not take this matter to heart." So Tamar remained and was desolate in her brother Absalom's house. This is the New American Standard, if anybody asks.
I have an addition there that says, lived with her brother in brother Absalom's house, comma, a desolate woman.
Yes, mine says that as well. Again, she's been disgraced, and she returned to her brother Absalom's house. And Absalom's words must have been cold comfort, as he could hardly restore what Amnon had taken from her. Marlene, could you please read 21 through 22?
Certainly. This is from a King James Study Bible. "But when King David heard all of these things, he was very angry. And Absalom spoke to his brother Amnon, neither good nor bad, for Absalom hated Amnon because he had forced his sister Tamar. And it came to pass after 2 full years that Absalom had sheep bearers in Baal-hazor, which is near Ephraim.
Okay,
so
could you
Absalom
stop?
invited all of the king's sons."
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
David was furious, and Amnon had weaseled David's permission for Tamar to come to his house. He heard now Amnon had abused Tamar, how he had disposed of her, how she was seen and heard running and screaming through the streets with her robe ripped. She was now a destroyed woman existing in her brother Absalom's house. David was irate and furious, but he did nothing. This was a missed opportunity for justice. Amnon should have been punished and Tamar exonerated. Absalom did nothing. He was perhaps waiting for another opportunity for punishment. Then came the festival of Hag Ha Gez, the sheep shearing at Baal Hazar. Kathy, could you read verses 23 through 27, please?
Yes. 2 years later, when Absalom's sheep shearers were at Baal Hazar, near the border of Ephraim, he invited all the king's sons to come there. Absalom went to the king and said, "Your servant has shearers come. Will the king and his attendants please join me?" "No, my son," the king replied. "All of us should not go. We would only be a burden to you." Although Absalom urged him, he still refused to go, but gave him his blessing. Then Absalom said, "If not, please let my brother Amnon come with us." The king asked, "Why should he go with you?" But Absalom urged him, so he sent with him Amnon and the rest of the king's sons.
David declined to go, saying that he would only be a burden, that they would be a burden. But I don't think he wanted to spend time and resources to travel to Baal Hazar, since it was 15 miles north of Jerusalem. But just as Amnon talked King David into sending Tamar to his house, now Absalom had done the same with getting King David to send Amnon with him to Baal Hazar. Marilyn, could you please read 28 and 29, please?
Yes. Absalom told his men, excuse me, "Wait until Amnon gets drunk, then at my signal kill him. Don't be afraid. I'm the one who has given the command. Take courage and do it." So at Absalom's signal, they murdered Amnon. Then the other sons of the king jumped on their mules and fled.
Not one, but all of Absalom's men and David's sons ran away from the killing, or rode away on their horses or donkeys. And okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Phoenicia, could you read 30 and 31, please?
Before she does, I'm sorry, before she does that,
go ahead.
You have to wonder if David didn't know or realize what Absalom had planned. And that's why he refused to go.
That could be, yeah. Thank you.
It surprises me that with assassinations so prominent, why David let all of his sons go. That kind of struck me that, I mean, he had a lot of them. and to send a whole bunch of them, you'd think he'd hold some back.
Yeah, I wondered about that too.
Yeah, I wonder he wouldn't go, but yet he let all his sons go.
I think he wimped out.
You think what, huh?
He wimped out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, very definitely. But I'm surprised to me he let all the sons go, you know?
Exactly.
And it's interesting to also, you may be able to bring this up, so stop me if I'm getting ahead of you. But the fact that all of the brothers of Amnon left, they didn't try to avenge him.
Nope, not a bit.
They're gone. They flew to poop.
Well, they knew what wrong he had done, so I'm sure that they weren't going to avenge his death.
Right, true.
Okay, Phoenicia, are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm reading from the New American Standard. Now it was while they were on the way that the report came to David saying, "Absalom has struck down all the king's sons, and not one of them is left." Then the king arose, tore his clothes, and lay on the ground, and all his servants were standing by with clothes torn.
So do we think this was another punishment for his prior sins? Anybody have commentary on that? I think so.
Oh, yeah. I have a commentary, Kim.
Yes, please.
What went wrong with David's children? Amnon raped his sister Tamar. Absalom killed Amnon in revenge. Ultimately, Absalom plotted a coup against his father, driving David from Jerusalem. All through these events, rape, murder, rebellion, David failed to discipline his children. According to the law, they deserved severe punishment, but David let them off with hardly a word. Perhaps his own guilt over Bathsheba had undercut his sense of moral authority.
Thank you.
Also, Kim, this is Marilyn. God had told him that there would, after his thing with Bathsheba, that he would that there would be discord in his family, that he would come, that would be help me here, his family would be torn.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not saying it right. I can't think this morning.
I know what you mean.
But anyway, so since he recognized his own sin and he asked for forgiveness, but then he didn't discipline his own children when they did wrong. So this is part of the punishment that God had. I mean, it's just beginning of the punishment of what his family is going to go through.
Right. Yep.
Kim?
Yes.
Another thing for consideration, Amnon was David's firstborn son.
Yes.
And as such, he would be next in line to the throne. That's where First Chronicles 3, chapter 1 says that the firstborn was Amnon. Okay. David might have been loath to kill him because he was the next in line.
Well, one thing I thought about too was that I think it was in chapter 12 where the first child he had with Bathsheba, they never named him.
Mm-hmm.
He was also killed.
Yeah.
So I wasn't thinking that Amnon was his firstborn. I was thinking that he was the second in line. So,
but he was the firstborn that lived.
Oh, okay. 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 I see where you're going. Okay. Yes, Barbara.
I think David had a lot going on in his conscience, and because there are two sins really repeated here that he was guilty of. And number one was the lust for Bathsheba.
Mm-hmm.
And so although David was very stern in a lot of what he did, perhaps he had a little empathy for Amnon, thinking, I did the same thing or something very similar. And secondly, as far as Amnon dying and as far as David not punishing Amnon, is the fact that he went and committed murder of Uriah. And that had to lay on his conscience.
Yes.
So he may, I don't, this is just me projecting, okay? It's not in the Bible. But, he may have had some feeling, well, God forgave me. He forgave me killing Uriah. He forgave me, even though I paid the price for some of it, he still forgave me, even though I had consequences to suffer. And so perhaps he did not want to, he wanted to be merciful like God was. Now, I'm giving him a little more credit than he probably deserves, but I think it's something to possibly run through his mind. I've been there and done that.
Yeah.
And God was merciful to me.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I better think this before I go out in revenge of some kind.
Which may be, and Barbara's made an excellent point, which may be why David stepped back and didn't go.
Yeah.
Because he knew in his heart, he probably knew that the sons, the brothers, I've never had a brother, but brothers are supposed to take care of their sisters and all of that. And he probably deep in his heart knew that the brothers were going to avenge her in some way.
Right. That's a good point. Thank you.
Sudden, we're putting Tamar on a higher plateau than we were talking last week when women were pretty much discarded because they weren't very worthy because of their gender. So now all of a sudden, these boys, especially Absalom, is putting Tamar kind of on a pedestal to avenge the crime that his brother committed. So now all of a sudden she's very worthy. She's very important.
Well, she's also the king's daughter, which had to give her some kind of royal status, I would think.
I have a question, which the answer may not be in the Bible. We may not know. I'm just curious if Tamar was a half-sister to Absalom. We know she was a half-sister to Amnon.
No, Absalom and Tamar were both from the same mother.
Okay.
It's on Marlene's David's family tree graph.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Because that may have made a difference in how Absalom reacted to the sin of rape against her, because she was his full sister.
Yeah.
I think
Yes,
that might have
full.
made a difference in being a half sister.
Yeah.
Possibility. Because David sure had a lot of women and a lot of kids.
Right. But on that graph that she was talking about on page 6, it shows that Absalom and Tamar were full brother and sister.
Sister, okay.
With the same mother and same father.
I think that creates a special bond, even more so than a half brother or half sister.
Thank y'all for that. Laura, could you please read 32 through 35, please?
Sure. But Jonadab, son of Shimeah, David's brother, said, my Lord should not think that they killed all the princes. Only Amnon is dead. This has been Absalom's expressed intention ever since the day Amnon raped his sister Tamar. My lord the king should not be concerned about the report that all the king's sons are dead. Only Amnon is dead. Meanwhile, Absalom had fled. Now the man standing watch looked up and saw many people on the road west of him, coming down the side of the hill. The watchman went and told the king, I see men in the direction of Hor-Naim on the side of the hill. Jonadab said to the king, see, the king's sons are here. It has happened just as your servant said.
Thank you, Laura. Jonadab, who Tamar to his house, was now trying to be the hero in telling David that all were not dead. And I think it's interesting that before chapter 13 and after chapter 13, there's no more mention of Jonadab at all in the Bible. So he was a very short-lived person in the stories. Jolynn, could you please read 36 through 38?
Yes. And as soon as he had finished speaking, behold, the king's sons came and lifted up their voice and wept. And the king also and all his servants wept very bitterly. But Absalom fled and went to Talmai, the son of Ammihud, king of Gezer. Sorry about that. And David mourned for his son day after day. So Absalom fled and went to Gezer and was there for 3 years. You want me to read 39?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay. And the spirit of the king longed to go forth to Absalom, for he was confronted about Amnon, seeing he was dead.
Thank you. I didn't type that right on my paper. Okay, so again, King David is mourning for a son. Throughout chapter 13, disaster follows disaster and life in David's kingdom runs along, driven by lust, conniving, weakness, and hatred. A shattered woman remains ignored by justice and unrestored by murder. As God had told David that the sword would not depart his house, and he was raising up disaster against him and his house, David's sexual escapade with Bathsheba corresponds with Amnon's against Tamar, as well as David's killing of Uriah with Absalom's of Amnon. And I find it interesting also that as much as David prayed in all the Psalms that he wrote, it never mentions him praying at all in chapter 13.
Mm. Good point. I hadn't realized that either.
No.
Not at all.
Kim?
And that's why I didn't pick out a psalm, because I couldn't find one that.
Got 3 hands.
Kathy, you first.
I just have a note in my Bible. It says, with Absalom a refugee, David has lost both of his oldest living sons. Moreover, he could not bring Absalom to account for what he had done to Amnon, since David himself had blood on his hands.
Yep.
I've got a comment down here. Excuse me. Absalom's 2-year wait, during which he nursed his hatred and plotted his revenge, culminated in Amnon's murder. Rape was condemned in the Old Testament, but the punishment was not murder. Absalom's extreme action was unjustified and cold-blooded. That's one thought. And then I had another thought that when a couple committed adultery, which did not involve violence, but, was obviously a sin, they were stoned to death. So I don't see where you stone a woman for willingly going with a man and not kill a man who deliberately rapes a woman. To me, that's a real bad flip-flop. But evidently it was, I would have assumed that rape would have been, the person who committed it would have been killed, but no. Laura.
Kim?
Yes.
I have a note here. Absalom ran to Geshur, a neighboring kingdom, probably because his mother was a daughter of Geshur's king. He could be assured of safety there. So that gives us a little insight as to his mother and her heritage.
Okay.
And then in verse 39, it says the spirit of the king longed to go to Absalom, for he was consoled concerning Amnon's death. So evidently, the king loved his son Absalom, forgave him for what he had done, because he knew that Amnon had done wrong. But there again, there's no consulting the Lord on how to handle this. It's like David condoned Absalom's actions.
Thank you. I agree. Anybody else have anything, please?
Well, I think we need to keep this chapter with Absalom in our mind and remember this and what Absalom did, because later on, Absalom is going to figure in a lot of things again.
Yep. Yep. More's coming in 14.
Yes, to be continued.
Yes. Go ahead.
I was going to say, but I know what the things that Absalom did later on, so maybe I'm being unfair. But I wonder how much of Absalom's actions were because it was against the law to rape somebody, and how much of it was to get rid of competition for the future kingship.
Oh, yes.
for being next in line to the throne. The Bible doesn't tell us that, but
well, history
you
tells
have to
us
be a
that.
cold person to be willing to go out and kill your brother.
Yeah. Barbara?
Just to comment on when you said Absalom received refuge in the land of his mother. Don't forget, since they were full brother and sister, that was also Tamar's mother.
That's true.
So he had a real good chance of being under their protection because he not only was that woman's, I can't say her name, son, but the person she killed because she was disgraced, that that was that woman's daughter too.
Yeah.
So that made us,
And he was protecting his sister there.
Yes, yes.
So he had good and bad reasons.
Yeah. Very well, it's kind of like life.
Yeah.
For life, and as we read this whole section, we have the facts of what happened and a public mention of why these things happened, but we don't really know. Only God knows what was in their hearts and why they did what they did. So again, that's up to God. We don't. Let's ask him about that when we get up there, okay?
The list is getting longer and longer.
Yeah. It's a good thing we got eternity to go because we're going to need it.
You and I'll be shoving each other aside to ask the next question.
Yes. We're going to need the number like the grocery store.
Jane?
Just a couple of things. I was thinking about, David, and it's amazing that sin that he did with Uriah and Bathsheba, just kind of reiterate what somebody said earlier, how long he's going to have turmoil in his life from that sin.
Exactly.
Number one. And number two, that he didn't, the point I didn't even catch when I read this, Kim, till you said it, he didn't pray at all, or it isn't written that he prayed at all anyway in chapter 13. And I was thinking about David's life over the chapters we've been reading about him, and his time of sin and prayer has kind of been like a roller coaster. And he's gotten almost, he has to get down to the bottom again, like with so many times others in the Bible, and we in current day as well, have to get to a rock bottom sometime before it snaps on us that God's teaching us a lesson and we need to come back to him in prayer. And that may be what's happening to him at this point too, maybe.
Good point. Good point.
Great point.
And I think it goes to show things happen in God's time too, because obviously a lot of years have passed. These children are grown. So David may have kind of pushed to the back of his mind, well, I committed that sin when I was a 21-year-old stud, and now all of a sudden he's a much older man with grown children. And so he kind of pushed that back. But God does his gifts and he does his punishment in his own time. It doesn't always happen immediately. And I think this is bringing it up, Jane. I think you're so right. This is God waited for the right situation to occur. And then David in his mind said, oh my, I wonder if that goes back to, me and my sins.
Yeah, he starts connecting the dots, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, my dogs are going crazy. Go ahead, Laura. Go ahead.
For all of David's virtues, he was a wonderful musician, a man after God's own heart. He was a fierce warrior. I mean, he was a lousy father.
Yeah.
Really a bad parent.
Yeah.
Right.
And he may not have been overall a very good husband.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well,
how many got all those concubines?
13 wives and concubines.
Faithfulness was not one of his virtues. Well, what
Yeah.
concerned?
And we also need to, and I may be jumping ahead here, but we also need to realize that not all these wives were Hebrews, of course. We know that they were from other things. But David did not let any of those wives turn him away from God.
That's
No,
true.
he did
That's
not.
true.
Yep, that's
He
true.
remained true to the Lord.
Unlike some of his other sons.
Yep.
Right.
Who shall remain nameless at this point.
Right.
Yep.
Well, hopefully chapter 14 will be longer than this one was. I just,
It's funny you should say that, Jane, because his firstborn with Bathsheba was a nameless son.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting the naming of their children, and this has always struck me. When we read the Bible, we say, well, they were named this because it meant that. And, how do you know when a child is born, what their character is going to be or their mission is going to be, and yet you give them this name? And those who are really, really bad might have this beautiful name, meaning, peace and love, and they're, an SOB.
completely
So,
opposite.
yeah, I just think that's interesting. We do associate some of the names that come out right and say, oh, that really does mean that, but how does when your child is born, you name them after your parents or your, something like that. And what prompted these people whose names really meant something, and I'm sure each one of us, our name means something now, but I doubt our parents named us that because it meant such and such and so,
Well, when you have a brand new precious little child in front of you, hope springs eternal that it will be
good.
all the things that you think it will be. So that's probably where that name of something comes into play.
Something strikes you, or somebody you like very much, and you say, I want my child to be. You have a very special friend who becomes a godparent or something. You say, I want them to be like that person, which is nice.
Yeah.
My name means barbarian.
You wild thing.
Yeah, I guess so, so I've never particularly liked that idea, but that's what it means. Nobody has a name for milkman, do they?
Barbara, that's better than Barabbas.
Well, that's true. But I think it's after the same, what would you call it? They found it, the original little, it comes from BARB. That's where the deal comes, and they made it a little bigger. But yeah, I don't like it. Never liked it. Wish I could go by my middle name, Kathleen, but they didn't let me do that. So,
oh,
yeah, I like that name, but
yeah, we can start now.
I like that name too.
I like that name.
That would be Kathy's real
that's
name.
that's my first name, Kathleen.
I know, and I love it. I think it's a beautiful name.
Yeah.
I had always, my parents had a big fight over it, and obviously my mother won.
I went through life loving my first name and hating my middle name. I found out Cecilia is my middle name.
Okay, yeah.
But I think I was named after my grandfather, Cecil.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I have a question, Laura. This is nothing to do with the Bible lesson. Are you still in Ohio? And if so, when are you coming?
Yes, I'm in Ohio, and we're leaving here in 8 days to drive down to Texas. My son David is getting married on October 13th in the afternoon. We're bringing the dog with because there's a pet blessing on the 13th at 10 a.m. And so we're planning to be in church that Sunday. I will be helping out in the pumpkin patch from the 15th through the 19th. And I have my props all ready to come and bring for the Miss Nature show and tell.
I'm coming to one of those shows. If y'all have never been to see Laura, I highly recommend it. She's awesome.
I went to the Cincinnati Nature Center and made a walking stick, so I'm I'm happy to be able to show that. Here's what you can do with a tree branch.
Yeah.
Donna?
For those of you that have not seen Laura's presentation, it is out on YouTube.
Oh,
It's if you go to, well, I'll look it up specifically and give you
Okay,
the link. But
Thank you.
they did record one session, and it's very, very good.
Deborah, could
Yes.
I ask to borrow your book that you used for Second Samuel? That
The
you
leap
and
of faith,
yes.
of course.
Well, wait a minute. Is that the one?
Or growing with a, what was the other one, Judy? Growing with a something heart?
Yeah, that one. That
Yeah.
one.
Growing your
didn't you also use leap over a wall?
It doesn't have
Yes.
anything in it about 13, though.
You know, I didn't even look. Do you want me to look?
Oh, okay. I can look and see.
That's why I didn't use it.
Okay, I'll look and see if I have something. If so, I'll bring it to you
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Sunday at church.
More resources, the better. I'm not very good at studying and finding verses and stuff,
Oh,
so
you did great
I don't
today.
You
agree.
did a very good job, Kim.
Yeah, very
Excellent.
good.
Thank you.
very, very good.
We knew you would.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Good
You know,
lesson.
the last thing Rusty said to me before he left the house this morning was, "Don't be too nervous." I was doing fine
Very
until you
good.
said
It was very
something.
good.
Easy to hear, but not easy to do.
Well,
Right.
I muddled through it, so
Okay.
I think you did great.
No, you did a
thanks for
great
your
job.
patience and thanks
Um,
for your input. I really
One other
appreciate
thing,
it.
since we do have a minute yet, don't we? I have packets that have been put together on the prophets. And it's something I'm going to do at the end of Second Samuel, because the prophets come in with the kings. And it's going to serve as a segue. Whether or not we do the kings next, I don't know. But this is a good overview of the prophets, where they fit in, etc. Some of you have already gotten those packets. They can't be sent out to be printed on your printers, because one is an outline taken from a very old book and it's legal size, and your printers won't print the legal size, most of them. So during the month of October, as I see each of you, I'm going to be put your name on each of them. So I'm going to be handing them to you. And just put them aside, because you're going to need them at the end of Second Samuel.
Can you mail
I
mine?
have a book from the library called The Prophets. So see if I can hang on to it or recheck it out later.
Okay.
Marlene, could you mail mine?
Yes.
Could you mail mine?
I thought maybe at Girls' Night Out.
Oh, okay.
I'll bring them then. Now I know, Kathy, you already have yours.
I do.
I gave it to you when you were here.
Okay.
When you came through.
Oh, that's right. I do. I sure
Okay,
do.
and Marilyn, I know I gave you yours
Oh, okay. Yeah.
when you were here.
Okay.
Marlene,
We'll make sure you get yours, Phoenicia.
I was going to suggest that maybe you give mine to Jane because I see her
Right.
at Zumba.
Yeah. Yeah.
And give mine to Donna. Give mine to Donna.
Oh, or I thought maybe I'd see you at GNO.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
And Marlene, I'm planning on coming on the 12th and 13th.
Right. Yes. For those of you, Deborah, you want to tell everybody about Jeannie coming, if they, or have you already talked about it?
Jeannie's going to come the weekend of our pet blessing, so she will be at the service on that Sunday. So we're looking forward to it.
It'll be
And
nice to meet everybody.
yes, and I was going to say, aren't the Holy Smokers preparing the meal?
They are.
So maybe we could all kind of band together.
Great idea.
Sounds great.
Eat
And
some.
I have two of the prophets, so I'll give one to Jeannie. I already have two of the handouts.
Oh,
So I
I
can give
didn't
her one.
realize you had to. I have Jeannie's ready with her.
Okay, whatever. You'll get one,
Yeah.
Jeannie.
Okay, thank you.
We've got just 2 minutes to go. If I could just quickly add to what we're going into next week. When we opened up, I said, the subject we're going to discuss is the supreme gift giver, Monte and Santa Real. Anybody got an idea of what we're going to study? Who is the supreme gift giver?
And what's the last part you're saying?
The last one was Mommy is Santa real? Well, we're going to go into, we have done spurts of this here and there, but never really studied the character of the third person of the Blessed Trinity, and that is the Holy Spirit. And he is such an influence in the history of creation, the world, whatever you want to call it, in our meaning. And we spotted on it, we keep bringing him up, but I'd like to do more in-depth, give us all the experience of what the Holy Spirit really means in our lives. And he is the supreme gift giver. He is the one who gives us the gift, the 7 gifts, which we will study and are very, very interesting. Okay. Wisdom and all that kind of thing. Okay. And also he gives us the most important thing, which again, we have flipped here, flipped there, and flipped everywhere, but grace. He is the giver of grace that infuses us. And there are a lot of Bible references to all of this. So we can tie it together with our Bible lessons. And I feel that when we come to parts we study in the Bible of people's lives, and they mention, especially the New Testament, mention grace. And so I think it's important that we have a little more cohesive understanding of what the gifts of God in the third person mean and how we need to use them, how we get them, okay, how we share them. So that's where we're going.
Sounds fantastic, Barbara. And remember, everybody,
give it a whirl.
Grace, God's riches at Christ's expense.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
That's why they're free to us, because God paid for it.
The price. Right. Am I the only one? I am getting feedback or something from.
Yeah, terrible.
It's terrible.
Very hard time.
Yeah,
it's like when anybody speaks, if you hear the static in the background, if no matter who it is.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm getting that too.
Yeah, I think we all are. I don't know where it's coming from. That's why it's probably better to be on mute while you're listening, so we don't hear that.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I can't pinpoint it. I don't know where it's coming from.
Okay, I didn't know if it was just mine or
no.
Everybody.
No, it's all of us.
Okay.
We have 1 minute left, Kim.
I can say a prayer, I hope.
Yeah, okay, let's do that.
Oh, Heavenly Father, thank you for this group of women. And thank you for helping me to find the right words today. And bless everybody, and look out for Phoenicia's son, Michael, and his family in the flooded areas. And just give us all your grace that you can. We all need it. In God's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Kim. Excellent job.
Good morning.